Welcome to Wow with JR, a podcast designed to help motivate others to grow by integrating practical skills, leadership principles, and teaching elements of the wilderness into our everyday lives. Now, for your host, Junior Humphrey.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, whether you are viewing this on the video form or listening in on any other podcast platform. Thank you so much for being a part and for supporting us today. Have something really cool for you. I'm not doing the one highlighted announcement until the end of the podcast, and I'm going to do that moving forward, which means from now on, I'm just going to start diving us right into the content, letting us jump right in. That way there's not a lot of chatter on the front end, so we can get our content, okay? So with that said, moving forward, here we go. Today's topic that we are going to camp out on and talk about is what to do when you make a mistake as a leader. This is a great question, and I'll share with you in just a moment where I first heard about it. But jumping back to last week, we were talking about leadership as well. Episode 12, we asked the question, is there a secret to leadership? And if so, what is it? Now, if you want to dive into that more, jump back last week and listen. That's our take on it. Nothing set in stone, nothing absolute. We are not gurus. We're just sharing our knowledge with you. But the cool thing is they do not parallel. But I did want to say, as we are diving into today's podcast, there are some components of that from last week when it talks about the different traits of a leader that will play into this a little bit. So if you do listen to it, it'll help you understand this one more. But it's not necessary. So as we dive in, today's question is, what do you do when you make a mistake as a leader? Here's the cool thing. All leaders make mistakes. It doesn't matter who you are or how good of a leader you are, you're going to make mistakes. Now, I want to take just a moment and speak to the new leaders, those that are just getting in the game, those that are trying to find their way, and those that are really exploring what does it look like to be a leader? Am I a leader? Those kind of things. Get ready because you're going to make a ton of mistakes. And if you're not, then you might not be trying hard enough. You might not be putting enough in. Because think about it, if you're ambitiously working towards something, you're going to trip and stumble a little bit because you have a focus, you have a goal. But in the midst, as you grow, you learn to look at your footing and look at what's in the path and dodge those limbs as you're running through the trails and those kind of things. But as a leader, you're going to make mistakes. Now, as a new leader, it's going to feel like the end of the world. It's going to feel like you just want to give up. You're not good enough. You're not prepared. Just hold on for the ride. I have been there, walked through it. Again, I'm not a guru, but I am a seasoned leader. I've been in leadership for a while, and I enjoy it, and I love it. So, flipping that page to the seasoned leaders. If you are a seasoned leader, you already know you're going to make mistakes. So, find someone that's new to the game and encourage them and help lift them up. I actually challenge every experienced leader, anyone who's been in it for more than 2 years, to dive in and find someone that you can invest in, that you can mentor as a leader. That's a challenge, okay? For those of you listening. Now, from that, we know as seasoned leaders, when we see someone new make a mistake, that means they're doing something. They're making forward movement, okay? Now, as an early leader, or as a leader in general, this covers both, but I'm speaking to the newbies right now. When you make a mistake, don't try to cover it up, okay? So that brings us to our question today. What do we do when we make a mistake as a leader? There's probably 1,000 12-step programs, 1,000 different things, but these are 5 points that I've gotten that I learned in a staff meeting a few years ago that was pulled from a writing that Dan Reeland did. Great leader. Go check him out. This is not a sponsored thing at all for him, but give credit where credit's due, okay? But I took these 5 points and how they were delivered to me, and now here at Wild, I'm going to take and put our spin on it and take our experience and add to it. So when you make a mistake as a leader, starting out, number one, the first thing you got to do is own it completely. And that is hard, okay? If something is directly your fault, I'm reading some notes, then it's more important to own it fully. Sometimes an apology is due, and then just move on, okay? Sometimes an apology is due and move on. Sometimes that's all you can do. If you are in a situation where you do mess up or you make a mistake, it's okay. If you don't know who to apologize or where to apologize, still, it's yours. If it is to be brought up, own it. Answer to it. Respond to it, okay? Which puts us into number 2, and we're going to kind of bounce around on these a little bit, but number 2 brings it to disclose it quickly. When you make a mistake, speak up right away, okay? This is courageous, and it clears the air. So 1 and 2 go hand in hand, okay? I talked a little bit in a past podcast, it may have been last week, I can't remember, when I was fixing a windshield for an old boss. Okay, so I have this windshield here, and it had a little hole in the windshield where a rocket flew up and hit. It was on a BMW, okay? Now, we got this little repair kit, this windshield repair kit at a AutoZone or something like that, some auto parts store, okay? So we got it, and we looked at the kit together, neither one of us ever using it, and said, hey, we got to figure this out. And then my boss hands it to me and says, you got it. I trust you. So, okay. So I go read the instructions, and he walks out as I'm getting it set up and getting things prepped and going. And so far, so good. Now, there's a component of this little piece that when you put it on and you put the glue and the sealant in there, then what you have to do is hook another piece and pump pressure in it. And what that does is it forces the glue into the cracks. So when the glue sets up, it's compressed in there and it fills it up, and it somehow makes it clear after you buff it, and you can't, I guess the angles and lights, however it works, you can't see the crack there, okay? But it also repairs it so it doesn't continue to spread. Well, in that process, pump, 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 pump. For future reference, yes, you can pump that thing too hard, okay? And that's exactly what I did. So when I got a couple pumps in, all of a sudden, that's all I heard. And it started one little hairline that quickly spread to one single line that quickly spidered out on the bottom. So I have just, on this BMW, I have just cracked the entire windshield when I was supposed to be repairing one little spot. Now, get us back to point number 1 and point number 2. That was my fault. I had to own that, okay? And I did. I took ownership for it. And then I had to disclose it quickly, okay? And what I did was I immediately went in. Now, I could have chose 1,000 different stories. I could have even said, because there was someone cutting grass from the county out there, hey, a rock flew up and hit it. Or when I put it on there, I guess I left it on too long and the sun cracked it because of the chemical mixture and the stuff. There's a ton of things I could have said, okay? But me just being the man I am and learning a long time ago in leadership, I had to get it off my chest, and I had to just go ahead and get it out, clear the air, okay? Remember, when you disclose it quickly, it clears the air. It kind of gives you a sense of freedom. It's still yours, but it gives you emotional freedom, okay? So I walk in, and I'm like, hey, man, I would love for you to step outside and look at what I got. And I know from his point of view, he was looking at, wow, I can't wait to see how good this worked. And I'm thinking, wow, I hope that I still have work, you know? So there's two different thought processes going on. So when we get out there immediately, I said, hey, man, just want to let you know, please have an open mind and a loving heart, but I messed up. I messed up bad. So when I applied the stuff on and I put the cap on and I pressurized it, I guess I pressurized it too hard and I cracked the windshield. And now this is kudos to him in this moment, and this is a little off topic, but he looked at me and he just got quiet for a moment. I said, all right, we'll figure it out. So I'm like, okay, well, no worries. I'll pay for it. I did it. I was fully owning it. I apologize. I'll take care of you and driving it to where it needs to be. I got it. And he's like, no need. We'll figure it out. And that was kind of it. And later on, he explained the learning lesson. It's like, hey, I just invested in you, and this is a totally different topic for a totally different podcast, but you'll never make that mistake again. So I just made an investment. Okay. So I talked about when you make a mistake, you got to own it completely. You have to disclose it quickly. And now you have to solve it correctly. Solution helps turn the corner from problem to progress. So a totally different story. I was getting set up for a class that I was teaching, and I totally went ahead of the game, okay? So here we are teaching, going back to the wilderness and the ropes and stuff. So I was teaching a class, doing some ropes, and you have different levels you've heard in the past. So we got, if you haven't, it's basic, advanced, rescue, and so forth, so on. So there's specific things with specific checkoffs in each class that you got to do. Now, every mistake's not going to be a detrimental mistake, but some mistakes can cause trouble down the road, okay? Even if it is a little one. Just imagine a pebble in your shoe. It's going to drive you crazy all day. It's going to scrape the floor, and now someone's got to get on their hands and knees and scrub that floor. So a little problem can become big later on. So remember that. So after we own it, we disclose it, we got to solve it. So same thing in this class. Hey, man, look, I just realized I messed up and I talked too far ahead, and now we may have cut class short for tomorrow, okay? And then there was a little bit also of, hey, you're jumping too far ahead. So what do I have to do? Have to figure out how to solve that correctly, okay? So it could just be as easy as, hey, everybody, I'm really sorry. I totally spoofed this class. Let's start back from the beginning and tone down what we're learning right now, because I've given you too much and you're not ready for it yet because the test doesn't even cover it and you're not going to need it at the moment. Or it could have been someone just tapping out and saying, hey, hey, Junior, take a break for a minute. I got it from here, and then kind of reining it in. But it was up to me. I was the one leading that class. I was the one teaching those segments. So I had to figure it out. And then what I did is I just found a way to kind of full circle everything and just remind people in the midst of what we were doing and saying, hey, when you're in this situation, what do you do? And then I mentioned, hey, we always revert back to the basics. And no matter what, no matter where you're at in life, what you're doing, what it applies to, always go back to the basics. That's your foundation. That's your start. And that'll take you wherever you need to go. So let's do that now. Let's go back, because our test is going to be over basics. So let's kind of revert back. I gave you a taste of what we're going to get into tomorrow. Let's jump back to the basics. Let's go and figure that out, okay? So we got together, regrouped, and pretty much fast-tracked but restarted the basic over and that class portion, and then we're able to focus solely on what was going to be on the basic test. So it was up to me to make that decision to solve it correctly, and I think that was the correct way, because if I would have just said, hey, everybody, I messed up, let's just take 5 minutes and reset, what does that do to my leadership? What does that do to their confidence in something that they are trusting me to show them how to protect their lives, protect themselves and others? So I'm teaching them things that will save their life, but now they're losing confidence in me. Not good. This is not the correct way to solve it. Letting someone else come in and solve it, I'm not owning it. It's not mine at that point. I'm not learning from it. I'm not growing from it. Yes, it's great to have people and teammates to do that. And sometimes that is absolutely necessary. But in this moment, in this particular time, I had to go through this, okay? And I had to be the one to kind of be slightly internally embarrassed and nervous and frustrated and fluttered, now off track, but still get it together, Junior, and kind of go. And it worked out great. The next day we picked up on the quote unquote teasers that I showed them, and we moved forward with it. And that was my idea and my thought process and my quick-wittedness in the moment to solve it correctly, okay? So 1, own it completely. 2, disclose it quickly. 3, solve it correctly. Now, number 4, here's where it gets us, okay? Learn from it thoroughly. It's important to take some time to think through what caused the mistake, okay? It's important to take some time to think through what caused the mistake. Now, with this particular story, the first story, it was just a sole accident. With this particular story, after evaluating, I got excited. I love the outdoors. I love rappelling and climbing and ropes and the whole 9 yards. Anything outdoors, I'm your guy, okay? I love it. And if you know me, I'm a very spunky, outgoing, perky person, and I love life and I love people and super positive. So all that put into one little ball with a little bit of crazy energy, I got excited. Got really passionate about what I was doing, and just seeing people, oh man, that's awesome. Oh yeah, that's cool. Well, what can you do here? Well, I really need to save that question for tomorrow, but it's all right. I'll just hit on it a little bit, and it's just stuff like that. And I love teaching and investing and adding value to people. And as a leader, it's important to have that drive and that motivation and that joy and love to just give what you have to other people. Share your knowledge and give your knowledge away, okay? And as a leader, when you invest like that, it makes you feel good, because a true leader loves to see others succeed, okay? A true leader has already succeeded by being able to invest in someone else. So I get excited seeing others get it and retain it and want to be a part and grow and even aspire to know more than I know about the topic, which I don't know everything. But what I know, and if you want to know more, great. By all means, I'll even help you, okay? We'll do it together, or I'll just push you, however you want to do it. So jumping back over, learning from it thoroughly. I thoroughly learned from that, and I learned that while I can be passionate and I can be excited and I can be joyful and love to just give it away and pour into people, I also got to pace myself, gauge myself, refrain a little bit, take time to breathe, and realize that if I go through it too fast, I might miss something important. And I learned that lesson that day, because I had to get myself back to the basics to remember the basics. The basics is step by step. When you're teaching, you have the class to give them the information. You don't have to give it all to them in the first hour, okay? Especially if it's an 8-hour class or a 2-day class. Don't give them everything in the first hour. Give them pieces of it, what's relevant, what's important at the moment. That way you have time to process it and download it and chew on it. Same thing as you're investing into people. Don't give them all of your knowledge all at once. It'll overwhelm them. You won't know how to answer questions because you'll forget what you told them, okay? Yeah, you've lived those experiences, but when you just dump a fire hydrant investing in somebody, it's a mess. And when we do that, when we make a mistake, whether it's big, whether it's you hit one too many zeros when you charged whatever to the card, or you wrecked a company vehicle, or you got too ahead of the class and now you're either shortening days or people's paying for stuff they're not getting. Every mistake is a mistake, but you got to learn from it and figure out how to process that, okay? So the way you do that is you own it completely, disclose it quickly, you just clear the air, solve it correctly, make sure it is the right solution, not just one that works, okay? The right solution is important. And then learn from it thoroughly. Now, the last one, number 5, get over it appropriately. Don't beat yourself up if you have completed the first 4 steps. Shake it off and match your level of response to the size of the mistake. Now, both of those stories are important for this because they have 2 different magnitudes of mistake, okay? Now, I've made other mistakes in my past that are pretty big too. I've said the wrong things. I've communicated the wrong information. I have totally got people on board for the wrong thing. I have made my fair share of mistakes, and I have learned from them. But the hardest part is getting over it appropriately. And that's what I was talking about in the first one. It kind of frees you from that emotional state, but you still think about it. You go home at the end of the day, it's like, man, darn, I should not have did that. What could I have done different? So as you're processing all of this stuff as a leader, take time and think about that. Take time and figure out, how am I going to get over this, okay? And when I say, how am I going to get over this, it's not like, oh, it's the end of the world. What am I going to do? Who am I going to talk to? But if it is that for you, if it is the end of the world, what are you going to do? Who are you going to talk to? Find somebody to talk to, okay? Make it happen. It might be as simple as just saying, you know what? This is one for the books, and I'm going to take it. And my way of getting over it is knowing that I have a story to share later on in life. I have a story to help explain to somebody, hey, I've been there. I know how it feels. I've experienced it, okay? Don't beat yourself up. Remember, as a leader, especially new leaders, you are going to mess up, okay? The key is to not make the same mistake twice. Now, if you make the same mistake twice, it's going to be hard to get over it. And did you really learn the first time? Maybe not. Hopefully you do learn the second time, okay? But when you make that mistake, you got to get over it. Don't let it haunt you. Now, there's some times when you are kind of getting ready to do another activity, or, all right, take this for instance, leading someone down the wrong trail, okay? When you have people that are behind you and that do trust in you and know that, hey, everybody makes mistakes, that's cool. That's cool. You have those people that have a level of grace that is really awesome. Now, you as a leader, you've gone through steps 1 through 4. Let's say you're on this backpacking trip and you have to, I was hiking with my family, okay? I just put it real for you. I was hiking with my family on this new little spot we found, and I've been through it once, and I thought I remembered it, but when I took them out, we were trying to get through and get back because it was getting late. Our 2-year-old was just spent and done, and she was getting whiny, and it's just one of those moments like, hey, got to figure this thing out. So steps 1 through 4, hey, I got us lost. I am so sorry, but I had to figure out how to get over it in the moment and then get over it later as well. So in the moment, I got to get over myself. I can't beat myself up. I can't sit there and have a poor, pitiful me party. I got my family. It's getting dark. A trail that they've never been on. I've only been on once. And it has a ton of loops. And here I am taking us all the way through all these crazy loops. Finally, just say a quick prayer. Hey, God, we need some help. And no sooner than I did that, some random person that just came walking through there. And we're like, hey, do you know the way out? And they're like, I'm actually heading out. And what makes it so bad is the place that we kept looping through, we were right there. We were so close. Maybe 80 or 90 yards from the trailhead, going a different path, but we just got so blinded and so caught up in it, and I couldn't get over it in my head. Oh, I made a mistake, and I just kept thinking on it, and here I am trying to lead my family like this, okay? So when you process all this as a leader, every time in the situation, you got to get over it right then is not the time to do a deep process. It should be just as quick as a firefighter getting a call or an EMT getting a call saying, hey, you got someone cardiac arrest. They're in the middle of eating. They're in the middle of using the restroom. They're in the middle of doing something around the station. Hey, there's a quick process. What do? Figure it out. Boom. All right, here we go. There's a task at hand that's got to be done. And as a seasoned leader, you'll learn to process very quickly in those times and just make a decision. Now, I will say this. This is going to sound a little weird, but in the grand scheme of time, you have to process super quickly, but don't react. What you have to do is respond, okay? This is a little nugget at the end of this. When you react to something, then you just fly off the cuff. What are we going to do? We're going to do that. Boom. But when you respond to something, hey, what are we going to do? Well, give me 2 minutes. Let me walk with me, and I'll have an answer before we get there. Okay, here's what we're going to do. So there's a difference in reacting and responding, and it's very important. And that's what I'm talking about in the moment. As a leader in the moment, when you've gone through all these steps, 1 through 5, you are obligated as a leader to not react, but respond. And you need whatever time. Hey, walk with me to the door. By the time we get there, I have something. Hey, let me make a quick phone call. Or, hey, I got to pray. Give me just a second. Whatever it may be, respond. Don't react, okay? And in that's when you do all that, step 1 through 5, very quickly. Now, step 4 should be an ongoing thing. Learn from it thoroughly, okay? You should be constantly thinking of how to learn from it. Step 5, you can do again or finish up doing later when you get over it appropriately. Go home. Yes, talk to your significant other about it. Talk to your best friend about it. Talk to somebody and say, hey, man, this was a rough day. This is what happened. This is what I did. And just take that necessary time if needed to process it. Now, if you're somebody like me, I don't need a whole lot of time to process. There are very few things that I'll beat myself up on. If it's pounded in my head 1,000 times, then of course I'm going to think about it. But I am a very optimistic person, and I've learned in the past that some things I can change, some things I can't. But just because I can't doesn't mean I shouldn't try to make a difference, okay? I'm not just going to throw my hands up and say, well, there's nothing I can do. Now, my emotional state and my heart and my mind says, well, there's nothing I can do, so don't panic. But the noble, honorable leader in me says, I can't just let this go. Something's got to be done. So I'm not going to act a certain way about it, but I am going to help figure out how to get it done, okay? So just to recap, when you're feeling those things, take the time you need to process, because getting over it is how you're going to go into it the next time. Let's say you botched leading a hiking trip, okay? And you had people going 4 miles away from where they're supposed to be, people getting frustrated. Well, guess what? You got to do that trip again coming up. Same trip. Or maybe even the same group of people, okay? How you get over it is how you're going to go into it. If you don't fully get over it and you don't learn from it and you're still beating yourself up about it, you're going to go in foggy, cloudy, not focused, and hurt somebody possibly, depending on the situation and what you're doing. But if you're able to do step 1 through 5 and fully grasp that, then you're going to go into it with a clear mindset, a different strategy, a game plan, because you've experienced it once. You're going to know what to expect if this happens. Now, guess what? Something else may occur. Do step 1 through 5 again, okay? Again, these are not like the holy grail of fixing a mistake, but these are great basic starting steps for you as a leader of any season, any experience to do, okay? I'm going to read them out to you again. Number 1, own it completely. Number 2, disclose it quickly. Number 3, solve it correctly. Number 4, learn from it thoroughly. And number 5, get over it appropriately. So those are the 5 steps that will help you kind of regain your footing when you make a mistake as a leader. So when we ask that question, what do we do when we make a mistake as a leader? Pretty much just grab it, own it, learn from it, get over it. Okay? That's pretty much all it is. All right? So with that said, thank you for spending time with me. But before you leave, our only one announcement that we have is, if you notice this cup beside me, this is an Überleben Cusca. And this is what is being given away in the giveaway. Not mine, of course. This is my personal one. But they were gracious enough to sponsor our giveaway on Instagram. And they have sent us one that we will ship out to whoever wins the draw. Okay? So all the full details are on Instagram. Go follow us, Wilderness ILD or at Wilderness ILD, however you're supposed to do it. Go to our page. All full details are there. I'm not going to go through them on the podcast. But I will say, get over there now. There's a ton of entries. Go ahead and get as many entries as you can in, because it's going to be a random selection. We're going to use an app that we put all the names and all the entries in. And what it does is it randomly selects someone from that drawing. Okay? And then we'll announce the winner on the 20th. So be prepared. Be listening for that. But go over to Instagram. If you don't already and you're watching this video, subscribe to our channel, like this video, share it with somebody, follow us on all of our social media. The link is in the description below. And until next time, stay true, stay wild.
You've been listening to Wild with JR. Join us next time for more insight and encouragement to help you live out your full leadership potential.